All right, if you're wondering why I haven't killed a bird yet, here's my answer. On the first one when he came in, I thought, man, this is just too good. I don't want it to be over. So I didn't pull the trigger. When I called that bird back in, I was thinking, all right, I'm going to let him come in, do some strutting, give me the show, and then I'm going to kill him. What sometimes happens when you're using a red dot on your turkey gun is that if you hold still long enough, that red dot will actually turn off, and then it requires motion or hitting the button to turn it back on. So when I went to kill that bird, my red dot was gone, and I didn't want to just body shoot him. So I had to turn it back on, and he already gone up into the trees, and then we couldn't get footage of the bird where he was to shoot him. So not a big deal. Just again, the landscape here is incredible. To get to hunt turkeys in like these just super dry, rocky, steep mountains, it's pretty fantastic. That's fun right there. I was just chilling underneath this shade tree, checking emails, got set up quickly, started calling, and it almost sounded like he'd gotten farther away, which is something that gets me a lot with turkeys. And it's something everybody should keep in mind always, especially in terrain like this that has all these little folds. He sounded like he'd gone ways away, and he was in a fold that was maybe 200 yards away. And all of a sudden, as soon as we sat down, I saw him pop up in this meadow. Well, to prove that point even farther, he came across the meadow and dropped into this little gully wash fold in front of me that's less than 100 yards. And he gobbled in there half a dozen times, and I would bet he was 300 yards when he was gobbling in there. But when he popped up, I couldn't see a beard. And when I did see a beard, it didn't look like that 9-incher that Britt was telling me I should hold out for. Didn't have any spurs on him either.
I've had mature toms, 25 plus pounds,
Oh, no kidding.
which, yeah.
Wild birds.
And that's the thing, they're wild birds. So when you're thinking butterball, you're like, that's not that big of a deal, right? But
Yeah.
for a wild bird, that's a pretty big, hefty bird. The Goulds actually breed later than the Merriams. And so their poults are timed around that monsoonal rainfall when there's going to be a lot of insects in the ground for the poults to consume. And those insects have a lot of protein, which helps those young birds grow. And the Goulds are the biggest subspecies, so they're the tallest, they have the longest legs, the biggest frame, the largest feet. They move around these landscapes and travel looking for what it is they need. They really do cover a lot of country. So they're just adapted to this much more than the Merriams were.
When I spoke to you on the phone, you're telling me to hold out for a mature tom. Tell me what that is and what I should look for when I'm looking at a goblin turkey.
Well, first, make sure it's got a full tail fan of even length feathers.
Okay.
So the
so I don't shoot a Jake.
Yeah, so the Jakes are going to have those different length feathers in the center on that tail fan, and you want that nice big round tail fan. And the Goulds have amazing, beautiful, giant white fringe tail fans.
Yeah.
So really select a good one there. And as far as beard length goes, hold out for something 8, 9, 10 plus inches if that's what you're looking for as an older, more mature bird, because there will be birds like that on the landscape. But don't get hung up on spurs. So Goulds frequently will have one spur, no spurs.
Oh, really?
Yep, and even when they do have spurs, they're not giant spurs. They're quite small. If you had a bird that had 2 1-inch spurs as a Gould's, it would be a very good tom.
It's end of the day. I had a great morning. Lasted till about 8, maybe 8:30, and then it kind of shut down. So I had about 3 hours of really fun turkey hunting today. But for the evening, instead of going back up in there where those birds are hanging out, I decided just to climb up to this knob that kind of overlooks this basin. 1, just to see a pretty sunset, but 2, I think I'll be able to hear the birds. I'm guessing they're going to be roosted in roughly the same location, but just to be sure, I want to hear them gobbling on the roost tonight.
Day 1 goes just as planned. A couple of great turkey encounters, but no trigger pulled.
Last night, had the great plan of climbing onto that high point so I could listen to those birds in their roost. Well, turns out either those birds were not in their roost or they were not making any noise in their roost. About, I don't know, half a mile in a different direction, there was a couple, 2 or 3 birds gobbling in a different spot. I feel like I got a decent mark on them, so instead of going to where I thought they were going to be roosted, I'm going to where I for sure heard some birds, which I think is a smart thing to do. It's a bummer never having been there, so I don't know what the layout's going to be like on the ground, but it should be a fun hunt. About where I marked them on the map. I'm guessing I'm 400 to 500 right now, so I'm gonna try to cut the distance in half. Let them wake up, start gobbling on their own, and try to find a fun spot to set up and call them. I'm guessing that they're right at where what I would call the toe of the hill, where it gets steep and then kind of benches out. So I'm guessing they're going to come down to the bench to feed, not hang right on the side of the mountain, although they could. It's time to just find a nice looking spot and set up.